Welcome to the Blender laser blast tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do a science fiction laser blast. This will be a simple version, which is quite easy to do, but doesn't look quite as effective. And there'll be a later, more difficult tutorial that we'll do cover in a later tutorial. So the first thing I want you to do is delete the lamp and the cube. Now, I'll just point you here. This is the screencast key. It's going to show you what keys are going to be pressed. So if I press spacebar, you'll see it over there. If I press different mouse buttons, you'll see them click over there as well. Okay, so now that we've got started, we're going to click on the left click on the camera here, and we are going to center that by pressing Alt-G. You'll see that shows up there, and then Alt-R. Now what that does is that centers the camera and it points it down. We want to rotate it on the X-axis 90 degrees. So we're going to press R, then X, then 90. All right, once we've done that, we're going to move this back by clicking on our Move tool here, and we're just going to move it back a little bit here. Now, inside the camera, we have to set up our video. Now, to do this, we need the camera selected, and you'll get this camera icon show up over here. We are now going to go and click on Background Images, open this up, add an image, has to be a movie clip, and we're going to go to the Tutorials drive. This will also be encompassed, so you can save it to your home drive. But in the Tutorials drive, there'll be many other tutorials, T drive, many other tutorials, Blender tutorials, Blender 2.9, it'll actually be in 2.9, and we want this one here. Oh, no, we don't want that one. We want the other one. If you've already done one, then it will, let's see, did we put in there? Must be that one. No, yep, that's it. Okay, so in this video, the video footage, and I think this ends about 2:37, the little stormtrooper shoots twice and collapses, and then the screen goes to blank after that. So we need to find the frame, which is 2:30, and we're going to change our end frame here to 2:30. So we now have start frame at 1, end frame at 2:30. Now we're going to need to find the first place it fires. So we're scrolling through by grabbing the scroll wheel here and looking at the gun and seeing when the gun first kicks. There we are. So it fires at frame 50. So what we're going to do is, using our cursor, which is this tool here, we're going to click on the end of the gun, which is where it's going to be firing from at that point. Now we're going to make a particle system, which will make a kind of little explosion, a little flashy explosion around that. So we're going to, once we've got our cursor here, we'll just go to the Move tool, because we've got the cursor there, and we're going to go Add Mesh UV Sphere. Now it's going to make a huge sphere at this point, so we're going to scale that right down until it's quite small. Just needs to be at the tip of the gun, out there. So quite tiny. Now what we're going to do is use the particle system, and it's going to send off a shower of sparks over a couple of frames. So we're going to scroll down here, and this little symbol here is our properties for, in the properties window, is our particle system. And we're going to click the plus sign up here to add a new particle emitter. Now it will add a bunch of big dots there. We're going to leave that at 100 for the moment. And we know our start frame here is 50, so that's when the first particle is going to appear. And the end frame is going to be quite close to it. I'm going to start with 55, but we may have to reduce that down. And the lifetime of these particles should only be about 2 frames. And again, we may have to change that. Now, we don't have to change the source. I think that should be okay. Velocity is how fast it will move away. So I'm just going to play that and see what happens. And you'll see a bunch of dots being made there at that frame. Now these are a halo, they're not going to be what the dots end up looking like, but we can see those are there. Now they're moving at 1 meter per second, which means they're not moving very fast. So I'm going to push them out to say 5 meters a second. We'll go back. And you can see they've made a bigger area. That's about the size we want it to go to. That's about all we want it to do. And we're going to sort of randomize the velocity a bit. So I'm just going to go out a bit to about 0.6, 0.5 or 0.6. And you're not going to see much difference at this point, but it's just going to mean some of them go a bit further than others. Okay, so in here, we now have to, instead of having these big circles that are appearing everywhere like this, we want these replaced by tiny little particles that are going to be glowing. So I need to go outside of where the camera is. I need to go back to my cursor view, and I'm going to put an icosphere out here. Now, once I've moved my cursor, I'll get off the cursor menu. I'm going to go to Mesh, Icosphere. Now, I'm going to scale the icosphere down a bit, and I need to add an emission texture to it. Now, to see the emission texture, we're going to change to this little icon here, not this far one, or we won't see the video. Now, down here, we need to choose our materials, and we're going to go New, and we're going to change it to an emission material. Now, Laser Blast, we're going to make that, I'll make that bright red. And we want the strength to be about 20. Actually, probably about 50, maybe even brighter. Okay, now we should be able to see a preview here on what that's going to look like. Now, at the moment, it's just going to be quite bright. It's pausing in the preview, possibly because I'm going to that. I may need to just move this up a little bit, make it a little bit white. Now, like the lightsaber tutorial, if you've already done that, we are going to want bloom on, and that's going to give it that glow around the outside. And we're going to want tick motion blur. So make sure you've got this one here, which looks like a camera, tick bloom, tick motion blur. All right, so this is the object. These little particles are each going to be glowing red like this. We could change the color. We might even change the color to a more orangey color, but we'll have a look at it in a second. All right, now I'm going to go back and select my particle model again. Okay, now in my particle model, so I've just gone back and clicked on that. You can see the little dot selected there, or I can go here to my sphere, which is my particle model. Now, when I go to render, at the moment it's halo. Now we're going to replace halo with this object. So we're going to go halo to object, and then the instance object is my icosphere. So I'm going to click on that. Now you can see the little glowing particles it's made. Now, we can change a few things about this. We've got our object there. We can change the scale of these up or down. So that's scale randomization, but this changes the scale. So we want them to be quite small particles, and we can change them and make them random sizes so it looks like a scattering of an explosion. So the basic idea is that they go spray out from the gun. Now, hopefully our motion blur will create a little bit of a motion blur there. So we're just going to check the motion blur. We can do that by pressing F12. That's the F12 key along the top. Now you can see it's created a series of little traces there. That's what we want. We can go back in and change that. If we want to go into the motion blur, we can sort of make those traces a bit shorter. Hit F12 again, render that out and have a look. You can see they're giving shorter sparks, so we can make them longer. It's up to us. All right, so this is basically the little explosion coming out of this. So if I play through that, that's the explosion. Now, I think that's actually taking a little bit too long. So I've given that 4 frames to do that. So I might go back to my particle system here, and instead of giving it 5 frames, let's give it 2 frames and see how that looks. That should give us a tighter explosion there. Play it forward. Yeah, so that's only given us 2 frames, which means that they've gone. All right, so we could go back. I could even try it at 1 frame. How far will they go in 1 frame? All right, that's giving us a more concentrated burst, and we're also going to have to make the lifetime. Let's try and make the lifetime 1 and see what happens there. So you can fiddle with these things and get it exactly as you want. That's pretty good. That's giving us a nice short blast. So about there's the limit of the extent. So I'm just going to render that once more. Yeah, that's good. That's a nice little explosion. I think it needs to be more orange. So I'm going to go up and click on the icosphere again. And I'm clicking on the little motion key. And I think I should make it a little bit more orangey in color. And that's going to make it look a bit more like sparks. The red beam will come out. We're going to make that as a sphere. Now, I've only done that the once on there. I would need to set this up twice. So I'd need to have another particle system do that later on. So I'm going to have to do another one later on. Now, the last thing I have to do on my particle system is I need to make sure it doesn't show the emitter. So this little tick box under render where it says we've rendered this object, we need to turn off the emitter. That's going to turn off that little sphere so you don't get a little dot just hovering there over the gun in the middle of the frame. Okay, now we're ready to add our laser beam. So we're going to go to the cursor, we're going to click the cursor on this object, and this, now we're going to make a nice laser beam, and that one I'm going to make definitely red. So I'm going to add, or come up here to add, mesh, and I'm going to do a nice little cylinder. I'm going to make the cylinder very, 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 very skinny compared to how it was there. So we want that to be about the size it would be coming out of that blaster. I'm going to rotate that on the x-axis 90, and I'm going to rotate that on the z-axis now around until it looks like it's lining up with where the gun is. Now, if I just hit the move tool here, I can kind of move and manipulate this. Now, I want to stretch that out, so I'm going to go scale, and I'm going to hit Z twice. And that's going to give me my beam. And I have to decide how long I want that beam to be. Probably about that big. Now, it's important here that we line this up so it looks like it's coming out from that direction from the gun. And then I'm going to press grab and X, no, grab Y and Y, no, grab Z and Z. There we go. So I'm grabbing on the Z axis and I'm lining it up with the front of the gun. So, however, on that first frame, it's not going to be there. Now, what was the first frame? It was on our particle model, which was the sphere. Our first frame was 50. So we're going to go to frame 50. We're going to go frame 49, actually. And I know that in frame 49, I don't want this laser blast anywhere near it. So I'm going to go G for grab, Z twice to get it on the local Z axis, and I'm going to move it out there. I'm going to press this little button here and press I, lock, rotation, and scale. Location, rotation, and scale. Basically what that means is on that frame, this beam will be there. Now I'm now going to go to frame 50 by clicking the next frame, and I'm going to go G, Z, Z. I probably want to wait until until the blast starts to appear there. So the blast will appear at 51. So G, Z, Z, and I'm going to move my beam here because it's going to start at the gun there, and then it's going to take maybe 2 frames to get there. So I'm going to go 2 frames forward, and I'm going to go G, Z, Z, and move it to there. So now I will have the gun fire, the laser appear and shoot off very quickly that direction. You can see that shoot off. Now, I need to add my laser, give my laser blast a color. So again, I've got it selected. I'm going to go click on the new tool, press new. There's my material. Now I could use the material that's already there, but I'm just going to come in here and choose emission again. This time I want it to be definitely sort of reddish. Let's go 50 again. Yeah, that's looking good. So my laser blast is looking good. So if I come back here, I can see, say, that frame there. Now let's preview that frame. Okay, so you can see the laser coming out there nicely, and you can see the little sparks flying off from there, looking like a little explosion coming out. So you can also see it's got a grey background and it doesn't have the film on. So first, let's change that from the grey background to a clear background. Now we do that by clicking in the camera mode, coming down to film, and ticking transparent. So now when I render it, it will render what's in the camera frame only, and the rest is transparent, which means we can use this as a transparent layer over our background image. And to do that, we're going to do that in our compositing window. So along the top here, we've got these tabs. We need compositing on. I don't need this little side menu, so I'm going to press N, which removes that. I'm going to click on Use Nodes and just double click on that one and double click on that one, make sure alpha's on. Move that over here. All right, so that's my top layer, my render layer. I'm going to want to add an output viewer node so I can see what I've done. And I'm going to want to join that layer up to that. So that shows me, if you press V, it'll reduce that down, show you what's on frame. Now you can see I don't have a background image in, so I need to add a new node for that. So I'm going to go Input, Movie Clip. Now put that above that. Now my movie clip's already there. It's this background video. Now I need to make a little joiny thing here. So I'm going to go Add, Color, Alpha Over. Now this image goes into this image here. This one goes into this one here. This one goes into this one here. And now we should see the video. If I've got the right image. Let's just make sure I've got the right video. That one's on there yet. May need to render it, and we're pushing that one into that one. There we go. So that's my frame that I've rendered. And you'll notice if I move to another frame, you've still got that laser blast. So you're going to have to hit F12 to preview the next frame that you're rendering it. So everything's out of frame there, which is right. If I go back to frame before, I should still have a bit of the laser in there, F12. There we go, still got the laser in there. F12, the laser should be moved along a bit. There we go, it's moved along a bit. So we get the idea, that's how it's going to look in the final film. Now, you're going to have to do this twice. You can use the same laser bolt again, you can just realign it because it's out of frame. So back in here, as long as it's out of frame here, you're not seeing it, and you're just going to add another one of these particle systems on the next time the laser bolt fires. Okay, so that's how we do that. Now I'm just going to render it out to frame 80 here. So I'm actually going to change that to the end frame 80 just for this test. But in the final footage, you might have more laser blasts going. This is just to show you how to do it. Now here, this one here that looks like a printer printing an image out, this is where we're going to save things and how we're going to save things. So at the moment it's set to PNG, which is a bunch of still images. We want FMPEG video. And we want to go here to the folder, which is telling it where it's going to save, and you'll save it to your home drive. All right, I'm going to save it to my D drive, but you'll save it to your H drive and in your folder for this. I'm going to save it in here, and I'll call it laser, because I've already done this, laser test 2. I'm calling it laser test 2 because I've already got one that I've done. Okay, once you've done that, you come up here to render. If your screen's like this, you just grab those with the mouse in the middle, and we render animation. Now that's going to render that out frame by frame. You can see it's up to frame 2. And basically it will just go through the full 80 frames until it is finished rendering the video. So I'm going to leave it there. I will leave the video that's in there for you to have a look, but you can see that's moving the different frames, but it's going quite slowly. Okay, so running this video and rendering this is taking ages. Okay, thank you for listening.